Hey everyone, welcome back to Epicenter Garage. Now, you guys probably know by now that I have a very eclectic taste in cars. And let me back up. I like anything with an engine on it. Whether or not I can get in it and ride it or get on it and ride it, I'm completely in. But there are some cars that I am like drawn like a bug to light. And one of those is right here. This is my 2005 Subaru STI, blue, gold wheels, and I cannot say enough about this car in particular, just Subarus in general. I really, really like all Subarus, but the STI, I like all the years of the STI, or the WRXs for that matter, but the 04s, 05s, that I wanted one of these for a long, long time. There are a list of cars that I was going through and buying, before this, but this was at the top of my list. But I wanted one that had been modified, because these cars stock are fantastic, but I was like, you know what? I know if I get a stock one, I'm going to modify it. I'm going to do exhaust. I'm going to do intake. I'm going to increase the boost. I'm going to do this, do that. So this one I bought that had everything done that I wanted to do to the car. And lo and behold, it doesn't have that many miles, although I wouldn't even care if this thing would have had 100,000 miles and was beat up and rock chips. I would have still bought it because it had everything done to it that I was planning on doing. So it saved me a lot of time and actually a lot of money now that I think about it. But I love driving this car. Now, this car has had quite a bit of work done to it. One of the things I like about this car is it looks relatively stock. Granted, I put on the wing splitters and stuff like that, or the wing struts in the rear. I put on some mud flaps. I've done a few little things. I put a little longer shifter in there just because of the rally cars, they're reaching up high and they're banging through the gears, and instead of having it kind of down low, so I've modified that, and I'll show you guys here in a second. But I like these cars so much that after driving it, and this car is fast. This one put down, I want to say, when I went to go pick this car up in Colorado, I met the previous owner at a dyno because it was set up to run on E85, and I was like, well, I really don't have access to that where I live. So we retuned it for 90 or 91 octane, and it still put out about 355, 360 horsepower at the wheels, which that's probably going to be right around a little over 400 at the crank, 410 probably, which it is a blast to drive. One of my favorite cars out of all the cars that I own. It makes the best noises. It's so much fun to drive, and just the power. And this is, out of all these cars in here, my 12-year-old son, this is the ticket for him right here. This is his favorite. And me being with the mindset of a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, I totally agree. But the issue is that as I started driving this car, I thought, man, I've never driven a stock one. I wonder what a stock one would be like. And so then I started that process. Then you get online, you're like, I like this car so much. You know what? I could probably go for another one. I was like, wait, Brian, what are you doing? You don't be ridiculous. You don't need another STI. So you guys know how it goes. You're bored, you're waiting around, you're picking your kids up, whatever. You grab your phone, you start breezing. Of course, my go-to is bring a trailer. Then, of course, it's Craigslist. And nowadays, it's Facebook Marketplace. One night, I'm bored, I'm going through, and all of a sudden, a new auction place pops up. I was like, well, that's pretty cool, but they only had 3 cars. So I thought, and of course, one of them caught my eye. It was a blue 2005 STI, super low mileage, all original, which you guys know this, you never find an STI all original. The first thing is the exhaust that gets modified, the intake, and that's what you do, which is perfectly fine. But this one was completely stock, hadn't been molested, not touched, nothing modified on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a rare bird right there. And so I thought, no, Brian, no. And I literally took it off my phone and I got off that site. And I'm like, no, I don't need another one. My wife would kill me. My son would be like, yeah, Dad, we do need another one. So anyway, I was like, no, I can't do that. Lo and behold, I'm like, oh man, when was that auction ended? In like another day? So I get back on there, and sure enough, I will admit this, I did put a reminder in my phone. So that's half the battle is knowing that you have an issue, right? So I did put a reminder on my phone. I'm sitting there at work, and boom, it comes up, and there's like 30 minutes left. And I was like, oh man. And you try to talk yourself out of it. You're like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to buy another car, especially one that just like one I already have. Granted, it was all stock, and that's what happens. You start to rationalize these things. You're like, yeah, but it's different. You know, well, where am I going to find another one that's completely stock, or this or that, or it's close? You know, I wouldn't have to pay shipping to have it shipped in. I don't need to tell you guys what happens in those situations. So it gets down to crunch time, and then I started rationalizing, like, well, this is a new auction site. There's not probably going to be a lot of bidders. I haven't heard about the site, so probably not very many other people have heard about the site. And then it comes down, 2 minutes left, and the bids are low. And this is the first car that this website is auctioning up. And I'll put the auction site down below as well, so you guys can check it out. And so I'm like, they're not going to let their first car go for no reserve. And it was, lo and behold, boom. I bought it. So I bought yet another 2005 STI because I'm a freaking idiot. So both of these cars, they're pretty close as far as serial numbers. I think they're right around 184, 185 as far as the numbers, as far as the serial numbers on these two cars. This one is fairly, I mean, I don't want to say highly modified because there are some that are just out there and just crazy. But the reason why I like this car is because it looks relatively stock. It doesn't have so many modifications that it makes it unbearable to drive. It's just absolutely fast enough. And I think the way that Subaru, you know, with 400 horsepower, 410 horsepower, is just like the perfect spot. Now this car has been lowered, as you can see here, the gap here. This one does have mud flaps, and this car is still very dirty. I should actually wash cars before I bring them on camera, but oh well. So this one, like I said, mud flats. It does have different rotors on the front, whereas this one is completely stock. You know, wheel gap here, all stock rotors, all stock brakes, all stock interior, all stock engine. Well, speaking of engine, let's go ahead and open these up and I can show you the difference. Nothing overly exciting here. This is, you know, basically your bone stock STI, 300 horsepower, 305 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque. Just an absolute, I love driving this car, just all stock. It's amazing that back in 2005 or earlier, 2004, that they built these cars and how special they are. And it does, and when I say all stock, sorry, it does have a strut bar here. So not 100% stock, I guess. So, but anything like that, it could be taken back and taken off and put back all original, as they say. Now this one, so I pop this one here. This one actually has struts on it, and the hood goes way up, basically almost 90 degrees to the ground. Now this one is, it's not heavily modified in the world of modifying STIs, but it has a thicker intercooler. It does have a different block, different pistons, different intake. This one runs roughly about 25 pounds of boost, which is not over the top, 25, 26 pounds. Better cooling, does have different exhaust. Now as for the suspension, has coilover shocks. It obviously it's been lowered with the coilovers. And then it does have different brakes. It has Delrin bushings, different sway bars, and it just handles like a dream. And I'll take you around to the interior. So the interior of this modified car is pretty much all stock. It does have a different head unit in here, Pioneer head unit. It does have a different gauge cluster at the top where I can read the air-fuel mixture, I can read the boost, and I can read the coolant as well. And of course the shifter I modified this. I put a spring, I know maybe it looks a little bit hokey, but the shifter on it was just too low for me. I like being able to go from the steering wheel, boom, 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 instead of kind of down, down, bang. I just love a little bit longer shifter, and it makes it feel like the throws are longer, but that's okay. And then this right here, same thing right here, I modified that, so I just go into reverse. So a little bit longer shifter. As far as anything else in the interior is pretty much stock. I can go in through the access port, OBD2, and swap between different tunes, but I don't think I've ever done that, because once it's set, you know, 400 horsepower, 410 horsepower at the crank is plenty. I mean, I know a lot of them out there, oh my gosh, well over 500, 600 horsepower, but I want to make this extremely, well, I didn't build this car, but the fact that it, you know, from a horsepower level tuning, it's super reliable, easy to work on, and I haven't had any issues with it. But I've yet to ever go head to head. obviously when I drive both of them, I can tell this one's much faster. It'll be really fun just to do some low RPM pulls just to see from a torque standpoint, because right off the bat, they feel about the same as far as low RPM, just the torque. But of course, once this one gets up, 4,500 RPM, I think this thing will just absolutely smoke the other one. 100 more horsepower is certainly going to do that. But it's really fun just to kind of drive them back to back to feel. Now, which one would I prefer? This one right here. But it's faster, much louder, makes all the right noises. It feels like a rally car with all the noises. And my son, he loves this one a lot better than that one. But I had to buy that one. You guys understand? You find a stock STI that has no modifications, you got to buy it. You just got it, and it was such a good price that, and I finally convinced my wife that it was a good deal. So that's about it on my tale of two identical STIs. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoy the episodes, please subscribe, because I'm still going to be kicking them out. Anyway, take care, you guys.